So you start us, Carol.
I'm starting?
Yeah.
Right over here. Yeah, you don't breathe in this temple without somebody knowing about it.
Go.
Shabbat Shalom. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim shevet achim gam yachad. How good it is, how sweet it is,
How sweet it is
to be together on this day. How good it is,
How good it is
how sweet it is,
How sweet it is
to be together on this day. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Salam Aleikum. Shalom Aleichem, Shalom Aleikum.
Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you for tuning in. We're here in the sanctuary, and there's nobody here except for our bat mitzvah family, who's sitting socially distanced away, and we're unmasked just because we are in an empty space and we're distanced with each other, and we're really here doing this way because we want to keep all of us safe as we're getting to celebrate Shabbat together. My name's Kavod Weeder. This is Kim Gubner, and with Alan Levin on bass and Carol Roman on piano, will be your guides for this evening's Shabbat experience. Shabbat, in the Torah, Shabbat follows the incident over the golden calf of Israel being impatient and worshiping a golden calf when Moses isn't coming down from the mountain. And a Hasidic master, the Mea Shaloach, teaches that what Moses was doing up with God was teaching him about Shabbat, was teaching him about that Shabbat is a vision of Olam Haba, of the world to come. And that was a vision of a world in which everybody was totally present to the godly presence in everything and in everywhere. And it was this vision that is kind of the heart that we get a taste of on Shabbat. And what he teaches is that the people who were down the mountain worshiping the golden calf, they also yearned for this vision of a world in which God's presence was everywhere. But the problem was they were impatient. Their sin wasn't idol worship. It was that they didn't realize that God was with them as is, that they didn't need a calf, they didn't need something extra. And all of us struggle with impatience. We struggle with wanting what is in our hearts to be manifest in the world. We want the world as it could be sometimes, not always as it is. And all of us together, whether we're not able to be in the sanctuary here because we're trying to be safe in this moment of COVID, and we feel, I wish I didn't have to be watching this at home. Or some of us are bedridden and suffering through illness and wanting that to be over so that we can get back to our lives. And Shabbat comes as an antidote to that impatience and says everything exactly as it is a taste of the world to come. As soon as we're about to light those candles, we get to open to shifting our attention from what we want it to be like to being able to celebrate as it is. I want to share with you a brief poem by Chaya Lester, a poet and teacher in Jerusalem. This is a Shabbat prayer for patience. Please God, let me light more than flame tonight, more than wax and wick, and silver stick of wood, more than shallow stream of words recited from a pocketbook, but rather with this torch of torch and spell of prayer, let me light a way towards you. Let me dare to radiate a rapt request that with this lamp the world will rest, a stifling hand on pounding heart, and take a breath, a pause, to start to appreciate the state of things just as they are. So as the sun sets, we raise a blaze, resplendently we offer praise. As light leans in and grips go lax, our ache for future slips into the past. Arrival, a candle, impatience in vain. The world to come has come and come undone by flame. It is my pleasure to call up the Abrams family to lead us in the lighting of Shabbat candles.
Asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav b'tzivanu lehadlik ner shel Shabbat. Amen.
Beautiful. Thank you. Okay, you may be seated. If you have a prayer book at home, where you can turn to page 11. We greet Shabbat by opening to the aliveness of the world, that even the fields and even the trees are singing with the song of creation. Ya'alo Sadai. It's 4 lines from the bottom on page 11.
Ya'alo Sadai v'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay 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 Ya'alo Sadai v'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay 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 Ashiranenu kol atzeria, Ashiranenu kol atzeria, Ashiranenu kol atzeria, Ashiranenu kol atzeria. Let's kick it up, come on. Ya'alo Sadai v'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Come on. Ay 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 Ya'alo Sadai v'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay 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 Ashiranenu kol atzeria, Ashiranenu kol atzeria, Ashiranenu kol atzeria, Ashiranenu kol atzer. Just your voices. Ya'alo Sadai v'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay 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 Ya'alo Sadai v'chol asher bo Ya'alo Sadai. Ay 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 ay.
The central prayer of the Kabbalat Shabbat service is Lecha Dodi. Welcome, my beloved. Let's greet the Shabbat bride. And it's really this Kabbalat Shabbat as a service is a technology to try to shift us from our everyday work life in which we are interacting with the world and a lot of the times putting on a face for everything. Like as we're interacting, no matter how we're feeling, maybe it's a face of a smile or something else that's going on, but we are guarded. A lot of us are guarded as we need to be in moving through the world. And yet we move to Shabbat, and it's the time to let the guard down. It's the time to let the world in. And in Lecha Dodi, we say, Penei Shabbat l'Kabbalah, the face of Shabbat we will receive. What's interesting is this word panim, or Penei Shabbat, for face, is also the same root as the word for inside, peninim. So it's almost like on Shabbat, we want our insides to be on our face to be no more a barrier or a guard, but to tap into what we truly care about, what really gives our lives meaning, and let that be expressed on our face. So as we sing Lecha Dodi, the invitation, even being at home, whether you're alone or whether you're with family, is to find that place of joy and gratitude and let that deep inside be what gets expressed on your face.
La 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 Lecha Dodi, ya la 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 Likrat Kala, ya la 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 Penei Shabbat Nikabela, ya la 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 Lecha Dodi, ya la 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 Likrat Kala, ya la 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 Penei Shabbat Nikabela.
We're on page 18.
Likrat Shabbat. Likrat Shabbat, lechu v'nelcha, ki mekor haberacha, mirosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh b'machshava techila. Shabbat nikabela, ya la 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 Lecha Dodi, ya la 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 Likrat Kala, ya la 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 Penei Shabbat nikabela.
Page 19, Hitoreri.
Hitoreri. Kiva orech, kumi ori, uri, shir daberi, kevod Adonai alichna. Shabbat nikabela, ya la 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 Lecha Dodi, ya la 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 Likrat Kala, ya la 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 Penei Shabbat nikabela.
Last verse, please stand.
Boi v'shalom, Ateret bala, גם בשמחה ובשולה, תוך אמוני עם סגולה, בואי כלה, בואי כלה, Shabbat nikabela, yalla la 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 lekadodi, yalla la 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 lekad kala, yalla la 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 penei Shabbat nikabela.
At this point, we transition from the Kabbalat Shabbat service to the main body of the evening service. And at this moment, we also reach out and acknowledge that not all of us are coming to Shabbat from a place of joy and celebration as much as we'd like to, but some of us are feeling the loss of loved ones, and we're coming here in our virtual community to be present for a yahrzeit or for a loss, and feel the connection of our community. And if this is you, we say to you, Hamakom Yenachem Etchem, may the Holy One comfort you, and may you feel the connection and the beauty of Shabbat as we pray together. Chatzi Kaddish is on page 22. Yitkada v'yitkada shmei Rabba, ve'alma divrach hirutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon yomechon, uv'chayei dechol beit Yisrael, bagala bagala, uv'izman kariv, ve'imeru amen. Yehi Shmei Rabba mevorach, le'olam lo me'omaya, yitbarach, yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal, Shemei dekudesha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, Tushbechata v'nechemata damiran b'yoma v'imru. Amen. We join together for Baruch Hu on page 24.
Yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai lai, yai lai lai lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai, yai lai 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 lai. Baruchu et Adonai HaMevorach, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed, Baruch Adonai HaMevorach le'olam va'ed.
You may be seated. Page 26, this one is not in your prayer book. As we start to prepare for the Shema prayer, the center of our service, we open to that with, from a place of love, from a place of kindness, Olam Chesed. The world is built on kindness, the world is built on love, and we are a part of that. And that's what connects us to the oneness, the God presence everywhere in the Shema.
Olam Chesed. Olam Chesed Hivaneh. Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai. Olam Chesed Hivaneh. Yala lai lai lai, yala lai lai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai. I will build this world from love. Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai. And you must build this world from love. Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai. And if we build this world from love, yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai, then God will build this world from love. Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai. Olam Chesed Yibaneh. Yada dai dai dai, yada dai dai. Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael.
So I invite you to, wherever you are in your homes, to just stop what you're doing. If you're in the middle of making dinner, or to just stop, take a seat, close your eyes, and be present for this sacred moment. Become aware of your breath, where the air enters the nostrils or the mouth. Notice the way the body expands to make room for the inhale. And notice that contraction of body as the exhale goes out. And as you pay attention to this movement of breath that is sustaining us at every moment, consider the connection in the Hebrew between the word for breath, neshima, and the word for soul, neshama. That somehow this mystery of soul is found in that movement of breath. That life-sustaining process is connected to our deepest impulse for life. And as you're aware of breath and aware that somehow that process is very deep, become aware of your surroundings, the sounds around you, the air as it touches your face. That everything, breath, the sensations in your body, the world that surrounds you, is also filled with life, filled with energy, creation unfolding moment by moment. Everything is filled with the One, filled with God presence, inside you, outside. That when we really give ourselves to this possibility, our identity of being someone who is separate from the rest of the world begins to dissolve. And there is just God. There's God in my breath. There's God in every cell of my being. And there's God that surrounds. Echad, one, one presence expressing itself in every part of this moment. This is the awareness of the Shema. So whether your custom is to sit or stand for the Shema, please do it now, and let every word of the Shema that we chant be an expression of this one presence.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Va'ed.
If you're standing, please be seated. The Ve'ahavta is on 31.
V'ya'avta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol me'odecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha Vishinantam levanecha, v'dibarta bam, b'shivtecha b'veitecha, uv'lechtecha v'aderech, uv'shokbecha uv'kumecha, u'kshartam le'ot al yadecha, v'hayu letotafot bein einecha, u'chtavtam al mezuzot beitecha, u'visharecha leman tizkeru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'yitem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim liyot lachem le'Elohim Ani Adonai Elohechem.
Adonai Elohechem Emet. Please turn to page 37. Micha Mocha, who is like you, infinite one, among everything.
Micha Mocha Ba'elim Adonai Mihi kamocha nedar b'kodesh nora tehilot on sefele nora tehilot o sefele Malachutecha ra'u vanecha bokei ayam livnei Moshe zeheli anu ve'amru Adonai yimloch leolam va'ed Baruch atah Adonai Gal Yisrael.
Page 39, the third line from the top.
Ufros aleinu su shelomecha. Ya lai la lai, ya lai la lai, ya lai la lai la 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 lai lai lai, ya lai la lai, ya lai la lai, ya lai la lai la 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 lai lai lai. Uthros aleinu sukat, sukat shelomecha. Baruch atah Adonai ha'porei sukat shalom aleinu v'al kol amo Yisrael v'yal Yerushalayim.
Amen. Page 41, Vishamru.
Gonna pick it up just a bit.
Let's go.
Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Come on. La'asot et ha-Shabbat lidorotam berit olam, berit olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Beini uvein b'nei Yisrael oti le'olam, oti le'olam. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et ha-shamayim v'et ha'aretz. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Vishamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. Uvayom hashvi'i.
That's today.
Shabbat vayinafash, vayinafash, vayinafash. Take it away, Carol. Come on, baby. Let's hear it, Alan.
Hope you're clapping in your homes. Rocking out.
Yeah.
Shabbat.
Shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, et ha-Shabbat.
You know, in our Torah portion this week, the Israelites are just getting ready to leave. It's that final negotiation with Pharaoh. And God says to Moses, he says, this month, this Chodesh, will be the first of the months for you. The first, or really the head, the Rosh of the months for you. And he's saying this is really the beginning of the calendar, that the calendar is going to begin with liberation. That it's going to begin with newness, a new beginning. That's how we start. And a Hasidic master gives this teaching to say that the word Chodesh, month, this month, it comes from Chadash, which means to make new, renewal. So this renewal will be a Rosh, will be the head, will be the beginning for you, which is make your renewal be in order to make your renewal possible, go back to the root. Go back to your original intention. You know, a lot of us find ourselves in whatever drama we find ourselves, whether that's work or family or or whatever we're going through. And sometimes we might even ask, like, how did I get here in a moment? How did my mind start to get involved in this particular mishigas or craziness? And so the opportunity is to say, go back to the beginning. If you want this Shabbat to be a Shabbat of renewal, connect with the original intention that brought you to this place. Because what we find is that when we go back to our original intention, we usually find that it's a desire to connect. It's a desire for wholeness. And by reminding ourselves where our intention is rooted in the first place, we can find that place of renewal. So we're going to have some opportunity for silent prayer. In a moment, we're going to stand and get to pray the Amidah, which is in your prayer book. It goes all the way from page 43 to page 59, and we'll start it out with a little musical meditation, Adonai Tzvatai Tiftach. But as we come into our silent prayer, the invitation is to connect back to what's truly important to you. What brought you to this moment? Please stand.
Adonai Svatai Tiftach, Adonai Svatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha.
Shalom Rav is on page 57.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adom lechol hashalom. Ki atahu melech Adom lechol hashalom. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amcha Tasim Leolam. V'toch be'enecha levarech et Amcha Yisrael בכל עת ובכל שעה בשלומך. שלום רב, או ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. שלום רב, או ישראל עמך, תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם. תשים לעולם.
Shabbat Shalom. I recently revisited the movie Frozen with my youngest, and one of the main characters believes that she discovers freedom when she leaves the oppressive world of her kingdom and can finally express herself and her creative power on a mountain by herself. All her life, she was kept in the palace so that her power wouldn't hurt others, and when she finally leaves, she experiences a freedom a freedom to create like she never had before. And she's sad because she's utterly alone. For most of us, we also conceive of freedom as the experience of having limits and boundaries removed. And like the Disney Elsa character, we're not always happy. Usually when we read or hear about the Exodus story, we think that it's a story about freedom in response to slavery, liberation in response to suffering. We're able to think of the story as not only a commemoration of historical events, but as a symbolic telling about how we can identify with and break out of bondage in our own lives. But in this week's portion, Parshat Bo, we have evidence to tell us otherwise. Before the last plague on Egypt, the death of the firstborn, God tells Moses that this month of Pesach is to be the first month of the year, as mentioned earlier. He institutes the calendar with the Exodus as the primal event before the slaves are even free from Egypt. Not only that, 2 weeks before the Israelites actually leave Egypt, Moses tells the people that they must celebrate Passover throughout the generations by eating matzah for 7 days. After the Israelites actually leave Egypt, the Torah says that the reason for eating the matzah is that the dough didn't have chance to rise because they left in haste. But this is strange because 2 weeks before that dough was even needed, matzah baking was on everybody's schedule. So right as the people are about to leave, the Torah says, and I'll quote, "At the precise conclusion of 430 years on that very day, all of the company of God left Egypt." This was the very night that God had been awaiting the exodus from Egypt. And the Midrash continues. It was on that same 15th day of Nisan, 430 days earlier, that God told Abraham how his children would be imprisoned in Egypt to the exact second. From the Torah's perspective, the Exodus was not historically momentous because of what occurred, but because of what was expected to occur. Because it was the very night that God had been awaiting for centuries. God not only envisioned the actual event before it happened, but even the eating of matzah and the telling of the story that would follow. One more critical item about the Exodus story. In the opening of this week's portion, before the last 3 plagues, God tells Moses what he should tell the future generations about what was to happen. He says, "In order that you should recount to your children and grandchildren the way that I played games with Egypt, so that you come to realize fully that I am God. As the portion opens for the first time, Pharaoh is prepared to take the warning seriously. He has come under heavy political pressure from his advisors who warn him, quote, "Have you not figured out that Egypt is done for?" He sends Moses and Aaron saying, "Go and worship the Lord your God already." And exactly who will be going? Now, instead of graciously accepting this surrender and negotiating terms under the original proposal to let us go for 3 days to the desert and worship God, Moses responds, "Young and old alike will be going. We will go with our sons and daughters." And this makes Pharaoh angry. And he says, "Look, why not please just have the men go to worship God? After all, that's what you've been asking for all along." Now, Pharaoh was absolutely right. It was not reasonable to demand that babies come along to worship God. Quite simply, Moses had changed the implicit terms. The moment that Pharaoh agreed to the original proposal, Moses ups the ante. Poor Pharaoh is then forced into yet another humiliating agreement, this time to new terms. And Moses just keeps pushing it. When Pharaoh agrees to have the children go and just asks to leave some animals behind, Moses tells him that not only will they take the animals, but they will take Pharaoh's animals to sacrifice. Not one of his animals will be left behind. Finally, when Pharaoh has given in on every possible item and has agreed to send the Jews out of Egypt, incredibly enough, now Moses refuses to leave in the middle of the night. He tells Pharaoh they'll leave in the morning when they're good and ready. Our Parsha teaches us something remarkable about the nature of freedom. The Egyptian exile was invented by God, not responded to by God. Pharaoh would have been nothing without Israel. Egypt would have flickered at the edges of history, but for the role it would serve in creating the environment and the stimulus needed to forge not only our people, but a tradition that teaches us how to live in relationship with God. Freedom is not a response to bondage or slavery, but vision and commitment to live our lives in the most full, engaging, and holy way. Just as God had a vision of a people finding their connection to each other and to holiness amidst challenges and suffering, we too need to have a clear vision for who we want to be in the world. Freedom is not just about escaping from difficult situations or states of mind. It's about actively and intentionally helping create the world we want to live in, including the types of people that we want to be in relationship with, the Jewish community that we want to be a part of, the work we want to do in the world. In this new year of 2022, I encourage us not to make New Year's resolutions, but instead clear intentions of what we want to create this year. We don't make resolutions because we can't always see how our intentions will manifest. We don't know who will come into our life or what activity we'll be inspired by, but with clear intentions, we can notice the opportunities when they arise and claim them as our path. In the Torah, when God says he will take the Israelites out of Egypt, when he says, "In order that you should recount to your children and grandchildren the way that I played games with Egypt so that you will fully realize that I am God," we realize that freedom is about realizing the reality of God in our lives. Realizing that our choices are significant. Realizing that through our little lives, we realize God's presence in the world through making our unique contribution of goodness in line with who we are. And like any good game designer, God goes ahead and creates just enough challenge for us to be able to grow and push against our own limitations, but also just enough reward to feel the blessing and fulfillment of allowing our visions to come into being. Shabbat Shalom. We'll continue with a prayer for healing for those people in our lives that are going through physical illness, mental illness, or addiction. And we can find that prayer in the middle of page 63, Misha Beirach. So before we start, I just invite you to say out loud in the space that you're in, the people that you are wanting to bring into our healing circle, to really intentionally bring our prayers to their healing.
Lee Rega. Janet and Russ Landreth.
Misheberach Avoteinu Mikor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength, who blessed the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Misheberach imotenu mikor habracha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Please stand for Aleinu on page 64.
Aleinu l'shabeach la'adon ha'kol, la'teit gedula liotzer breshit, shelo asanu ki goyei ha'aratzot, velo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama, shelo sam chelkenu kahem, v'goraleinu kechol hamonam. ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא. ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ ביום ההוא, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו, ושמו, ושמו אחד.
You may be seated. In our synagogue family, this Shabbat, we are commemorating the following yahrzeits. And if I say the name of your loved one, please stand in honor of your connection to them. Jeannie Amram, Elsie Astor, Jerry Bander, Eva Batestock, Daniel Bennell, Elaine Bergerson, Dr. Dayton Burke, Alan Block, Ann Byers, Abraham Cohen, Marvin Crane, Ralph Davis, Harry Davis, Sophia Desayanikov, Vernon Emmerman, Ruth Erschler, Marvin Fetcher, Leo Fox, David Freelander, Sidney Alexander Friedman, Julius Gaffel, Shirley Goldman, Ramona Gonzalez, Walter Grossfeld, Beatrice Guzik, Yetta Handelman, Chaim Horowitz, Sherborne Sherby Hurwitz, Evelyn King, Seymour Klein, Fred Kovacs, Hyman Ledeen, Liam Lefkowitz, Minnie Levine, Ben Locke, Dolores Manasevit, Ann Miller, Albert Nahan, Gary Naiman, Elsa Newworth, Bonnie Newman, Minnie Nussbaum, Luba Orlosoroff, Joyce Post, Ernest Rosengarten, Rose Rubel, Herman Rubel, Fred Salser, Tebeth Schechter, Henry Schenkman, Sarah Sedge, Sarah Cohen, Sedij, Sarah Semmel, Dr. Harry Simmons, Jonathan J. Simons, Karen Stein, Martha Stewart, Donald Taylor, Stephen Weiss, and David Calvin White. We are also in the Shloshim, the 30-day period, for Arnold Skolsky, father of our member Pamela Skolsky, and Jeff Koff, our member. Also continuing to say Kaddish for my father, Leland Weeder. Mourner's Kaddish is found on page 73, sorry. You may stand or sit according to your custom. Yitgadal v'yitgadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
V'alma divrach yerutei v'yamlich malchutei. V'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael. Ba'agala uv'izman kariv imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabbah mevarach le'olam olmei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shmei dekudesha brichu. Le'elam in kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'alma v'imru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, v'imru amen. Zichronam livracha, may their memory be for a blessing. You may be seated.
Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Hey, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le. Hey, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le. Osei shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'al kol yoshvei tevel, ve'imru amen. Hey, hey, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le. Hey, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le, le 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 le.
In a moment, we're going to have Emma Abrams lead us in Kiddush to close out our service. But a few announcements before we do that. Please join us for our Saturday morning conservative service every Saturday at 9:15 a.m. And this service is on Zoom until further notice, so please check the website for the link. B Sisters is hosting a fruit, nuts, wine, and Tu B'Shvat Seder this coming Tuesday, January 11th at 7 p.m. It's an online, interactive, and participatory event. Please register to receive the Zoom link. And our Kol Isha Shabbat service is this coming Saturday, a week from tomorrow, January 15th, 2022 at 9:15 a.m. Please join us for our annual, popular, inspiring, musical, and all-women-led Kol Isha Shabbat service, now entirely on Zoom, and you can go to our website for that link. We're also having a 3-part Zoom series on Israel, put on by our Israel Matters committee. It's on January 25th, February 22nd, and May 3rd, so coming up at the end of this month. This series of lectures will encompass Zionism and its history, international Jewry, and the connection between anti-Zionism and anti-Semitism. It will be held online only. You can visit the temple website for more details and to register. And finally, the Temple Beth-El 6th annual meditation retreat is fast approaching on Sunday, February 6th from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. We'll explore pathways of silence, contemplative study, and sacred melody. This day-long retreat is geared towards both seekers who are new to meditative practice, as well as experienced meditators who are looking for authentic ways to express these pathways through Jewish tradition. And registration is now available on the temple website. So if you have a glass of wine or a glass of juice, please raise it and come over and join us. Emma and the Abrams family, please come on up.
So you hold up the wine. How's that?
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'ratzavanu v'shabbat kodsho be'ahava uvratzon hin hilanu zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit ki hu yom tehila lamikra'e kodesh seher litziat mitzrayim Kivanu v'harta ve'otanu kidashta mikol ha'amim v'shabbat kodsheha be'ahava uvratzon hin haltanu Baruch atah Adonai mekadesh ha-shabbat.
Take your first sip of wine ever. All right.
Mazel tov. And go ahead and take off that challah cover, and you can lead us in Hamotzi, Emma.
Raise it up and there you go.
And that challah is just for you guys.
Oh, boy.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamotzi lehem min haaretz. Amen.
B'teavon and mazel tov to you, Emma, on this eve of your bat mitzvah, and to your family. Shabbat shalom, everybody. Thank you for joining us for services this evening.